Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Framed. This is a BookTube event dealing with art and the loving of art, books about art, all kinds of books about art. I'll leave a list of the hosts down below. This is its inaugural year on BookTube, looking at a type of book that BookTube doesn't often look at, and that I've had a long history with. I wanted to do another video. The whole bunch of things I want to do for Framed. One of the prompts for Framed. An extra prompt. The extra one is to make art. And I floated the idea of maybe we could go through just a basic idea of how to draw a picture on this channel. I could have an actual sketch pad with the preliminary warning that I'm not good, but that we might be able to look at it together and have some fun. And a lot of you like that idea, so we will definitely do that. I don't have any technical ability. I can't mount a camera looking down at a draftsman's board or whatnot, so we'll just do it on camera and make it work somehow. But in the meantime, another little thing that I've been doing for Framed, at least to start with, we are still early in the month. The month has a long time left to go, is to take you through some of my art-related books. I have a ton of them. So I thought we'd do that today. I've got a bunch of them here that I thought we could look at. Starting with this from 2019, I think. This is a while ago. We saw it on this channel. We're coming up on a decade of seeing new releases in an endless parade on this channel. So there's a lot of stuff we've seen. But this is by Grady Klein and Yoram Bauman. And it failed in its goal. It was a great book, but it failed. This is the cartoon history of calculus. There is Leibniz chasing Newton, and that's all it is. There's math here, yes, but there's also lively cartoons trying to explain the basic principles of calculus, presumably to a beginning student or the math illiterate. I am as illiterate in math as it gets, and this did not work. I've read many books like this that tried in some measure or not to do this, including a tour of the calculus by a guy who used to not be a complete crackpot, David Berlinski. Now he's a complete crackpot, a science-denying young earth creationist. But once upon a time, he was not that. And he wrote a book called A Tour of the Calculus that I thought was quite good. And I thought this was quite good too, but it's just something is missing. Something just is not there. It will not click with me. But I had a blast reading this. This was still a lot of fun. And that gives you an example of one of the kinds of art-centered books that you can get, right? Is the point is not specifically the artwork. Instead, we're using the artwork to teach you something. Okay, fine. Then another kind of art book that you can get is the artist biography. I have a lot of those. We can go through a lot of those. This one is a UK hardcover that I had the American version of this. I really like it. I had the American version for a long time, and I just put up with it. I had no idea that there was a better version, but the UK version is so much better. It's so much nicer looking. When I saw it, I junked my old edition and got this one. This is Peter Robb's biography of Caravaggio. The book is simply called M. No idea why this cover appealed to me. So you've just got M. That's all. And this is the Bloomsbury, I think, for the UK. Yeah, Bloomsbury UK for this hardcover. And it tells the story of the man we know of as Caravaggio and does so in fairly frank detail. Caravaggio was an unmitigated monster. Talk about separating the art from the artist. Here we're doing that quite literally. He was a brilliant artist. And he was one of the most evil people anywhere in the art world, and that's saying something. I guess the art world tends to draw them like flies to rotting meat. And Peter Robb doesn't pull any punches here, which is great. He lays at Caravaggio's door all of the depravities, all of the rapes, all of the murders that you can do, that the sources legitimately attest. But he also praises the artwork and assesses it really well. So a terrific artist biography, one of many that I have. We'll do another tour of more art books. This won't be the only one. Then another function that an art book could do would be to prize out artwork from a prose setting and just give you that artwork. We've seen that with the New Yorker. I love the New Yorker cartoons, but they don't ever appear on their own. They appear in every issue of the New Yorker, which is loaded with text. And we will see more of those. But in the meantime, I found another one, this thing, The Art of National Geographic. This talk about Framed. The cover has some schmutz on it. We don't want that, do we? We don't want schmutz on the cover if we can avoid it. I finally prevailed upon my surly houseboy to renew my supply of little alcohol wipes. Finally. I kept asking and asking. This is a collection of all of the stunning artwork that so often appears in National Geographic, whether it's reconstruction of animals, reconstruction of ancient times. I have a number of National Geographic books, those big hardcovers that they used to do about, Britain or his Greece and Rome or Shakespeare's England, and those are full of original artwork. So this is a book like this represents barely the smallest fraction of the artwork that could be reproduced in this thing, and I'm sure that there's a bigger thing. I'm sure by now that there's this thing. I think came out in the 70s. Oh, you're not going to tell me. Oh my God, you're not going to tell me. Is that right? Or did you put your copyright information in the back? No, you put it in the back. 2009. Okay, so there's certainly been a bigger version of this that collects a lot more art of the National Geographic, but this thing has so much good stuff in it. And one of the great things about this book is that you don't just get the artwork. There's also lots and lots of prose contextualizing the artwork, which is great. You get these just gorgeous paintings that always fill every issue of National Geographic. Look at that. That is just amazing. So that's another way that art can be used, if I'm stretching just a little. Then another way is something we've already seen here on Framed, and I want to give you another example. I showed it to you when it came to the Bible, which is art illustrating a great work of literature through the ages, if it's an old work of literature. I would love it if there were books like this about any great old work of literature. As far as I know, there is no equivalent for this, for instance, for the Iliad. But there's something like this. This is the Tale of Genji, and this is it is not the Tale of Genji. It's not the actual novel, the first and still greatest novel of them all. Instead, it's a tour through all the kinds of artwork that Genji has inspired over 1,000 years. Everything from giant wall paintings to little boxed curio cabinets, each little compartment of which would have a miniature, gorgeously designed book for one chapter of Genji. One beautiful cut crystal chapter of Genji with its brushstroke prose and its poems, if they're embedded in. And some of those were more popular than others, and they were just take the pub sheet out of here. They were just part of the household. So over the 1,000 years, Genji has inspired an enormous amount of different kinds of artwork, and this book collects them all. This is from the Met, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Probably to go along with an exhibit of theirs. It's just incredible, just absolutely incredible. Sometimes when rereading Genji, I like to look at this and just remind myself of not so much the nuances and the complexity, the endlessness of the book itself, but rather the fact of how many thousands and thousands and thousands of people out there in the last 1,000 years have also, like me, had a copy of Genji on their shelves and went to it regularly. A book like this puts you in touch with that kind of a readership experience that's just mind-boggling when you think about it. Just mind-boggling. Then another aspect of art would be something that exists only as art, something that exists only in art form. No prose to explain. And one of those things would certainly be newspaper comic strips, which don't really exist anymore. Newspapers don't really exist anymore, and the ones that do, once upon a time, the comics of the newspaper was the thing everybody turned to first, that and the advice columns. And they got to the rest of the paper in due time, and then there was the glorious spectacle of the Sunday comics that were in color and were extra big, so you could spread them out on the living room floor. and just absorb them all. You've been following the story all week, but then on Sunday, the artist finally has room to cut loose and show you a big operatic panel, or move the action faster ahead than they can do in 3 panels during the week. And those are spectacle comics like Tarzan or Prince Valiant, but there were also regular comics that just kept going, and they were wonderful, and they are art, definitely, and this is one of them. This is the great Walt Kelly. This is the ever-loving, blue-eyed years with Pogo. This is his story of the possum Pogo. And this is just a big book collecting the Pogo comic strips from the newspaper, with plenty of prose from Walt Kelly. Pogo is a little bit hard to explain now. He's an ingenue. He himself is a pure soul, but he is surrounded by all sorts of maniacs and lunatics and politicians and whatnot. And they were all designed to reflect the politics of the day, of Walt Kelly's day, going on a century ago, at least half a century ago. And I won't say that you won't enjoy Pogo if you don't know that politics. You will. But it would easily be possible to have an annotated Pogo. Might be fun to do that too. It'd be easily possible to do. I imagine, in my mind, I always imagined that ebooks had progressed in their excellence and complexity just steadily for the last 15 years, instead of just being relegated to a 3-card Monty Huckster game. Let's see how much we can get the rubes to pay for something they don't even own. If ebooks had progressed and aggressive deals had been struck with copyright holders and aggressive moves had been made to improve the texts themselves, the electronic texts themselves, then I could easily imagine a Pogo cartoon strip where if a character mentions the McCarthy hearings, you could press on that mention and an explanation would float up in a semi-transparent bubble over the page. So it wouldn't take you off the page, but it would give you a quick thumbnail explanation of what you need to know. Or if a character looked a little odd, you could press on their face and get an annotated explanation. In other words, a world of electronic books that just doesn't exist and is never going to exist. It should exist. It could exist by now. And if it did, that would be wonderful. But imagine something like this. I just, it would be amazing. And I would have a lot fewer print and paper books on my shelves collecting spiders. But that isn't ever going to happen. So I won't say that you need annotations to really love Pogo. You can fall under the spell of it. But the more you know about mid-20th century politics, the better so a lot of these jokes are going to land. Unlike, for instance, another staple black and white comic cartoon from the time, Lil Abner. Lil Abner has a lot more contemporary political and cultural resonance than people think. Actually, so does Dick Tracy, for that matter. But Lil Abner does have a lot more than people think. And the reason people don't think it is because it's much, much easier to read and love Lil Abner without knowing anything about the politics of the time period. Whereas that's going to stymie you with Pogo. But there you go. It's still a legitimate use of art. And then we can finish up this look at some of my art books by going back to the New Yorker. Because where would we be without the New Yorker? You would be fine. I would be lost. I do not subscribe to the New Yorker anymore. But I did for 70 years, and that's a nice long chunk as a subscriber. And the thing I loved most about it was their cartoons. The New Yorker's full of little black and white cartoons they're not particularly good anymore. That's another thing that made canceling my subscription pretty easy. But once upon a time, they were sublime. Absolutely sublime. And they've been collected 1 million times. I have 1 million collections of New Yorker cartoons, including the big hardcover complete New Yorker cartoons, which does not have the complete cartoons in their pages, but there are compact discs that do have every cartoon, including the ones that you can't print anymore, the ones that your book would get pilloried, to get burned in public square if you printed them anymore. They are things of their time. I no longer have any technology that will read those discs, but I still have them. But in addition to the cartoons that fill every issue of the New Yorker, there was something else. The New Yorker covers. The cover of the New Yorker. I don't talk about it as much as I do the artwork on the inside, but the New Yorker cover forever and ever could be a joyous little pictorial poem. It could be just an amazing little thing, an amazing moment before you get to the inside of the magazine and maybe more fraught material. For a long time, I would say probably until the early 1970s, New Yorker cartoons actually, their covers actually went for an element of timeless innocence, much like Norman Rockwell for the Saturday Evening Post, much like J.C. Leyendecker before him in the Saturday Evening Post. They went for a moment of calm, a moment of timelessness. And New Yorker covers have been collected. There are a couple of collections out there. There's one that I don't have. I see it from time to time, but I don't have it. But I do have this one. This is a collection of the 4 seasons as they are captured in the New Yorker. Which is, we're going to have to pause for an ear-piercing siren here in just a minute. But let's go on as far as we can. This is an oversized book, obviously. And this takes you through all 4 seasons. There is Eustace Tilley. That is the New Yorker's weird mascot, who evinces a New Yorker of a bygone era. It was a bygone era even when the first issue rolled off the presses 100 years ago. But here we get broken down wonderful New Yorker illustrations, many of them covers, for all 4 seasons. Those of you who are finding this video in the future, if this platform is still up, I'm making this in 2024 when we could still talk about 4 seasons. We don't, in the Northern Hemisphere, we don't really have them anymore. There are little pockets here and there, Ireland, a little bit of Canada, but most of the Northern Hemisphere doesn't have 4 seasons anymore. Once upon a time, forever and ever, we did. And that's what this book is all about. And if you're looking at this video from 20 years in the future, well, if you're born in that era, you'll have no knowledge of anything that was ever called winter. This was winter, where the air temperature got very, very cold, sometimes below the freezing point of water, and white particulate matter called snow often precipitated out of the air. I don't know what it's going to seem like fantasy, but that actually did happen every year like clockwork. It is ending. No matter how old the people are who are watching this video right now, they are going to live to see it gone completely. We are all, those of us who are in our 20s, when I'm making this video, are going to live to see this planet with no ice caps. Which is kind of amazing, and it should not have happened for a very, very, very long time. It's going to happen in a lifetime. But those are those traditional 4 seasons. So autumn, when in the Northern Hemisphere the trees are changing, the leaves are changing color, the leaves are falling, the days are getting shorter, the days are getting colder. Then winter, which is actually cold. Then spring, where the grip of winter is loosening and everything is blooming again, and then summer, where it's warm, and in some parts of the American South, it's hot. Summer is the closest equivalent of the season that you experience. You experience normal season, which is about 3 months a year, and then fire season, which is the entire rest of the year, in which your temperatures are triple digits. Those of you who are watching this video from 20 years in the future will think that 100-degree Fahrenheit day is cool. But we didn't think that back now. and summer was a time when if you reached 100 degrees, that was something you'd talk about with your grandkids, and it was, you would notice it, you'd remember it 10 years later, you'd say, remember that year that we had a really, really hot few days. As I'm making this video, there are parts of the American state of Arizona who are on their 110th consecutive day of 100-degree temperatures. That has never happened before in this Milankovitch cycle of this planet in that latitude. That is utterly, utterly unprecedented. And they're on 3rd, 4th month, no real relief in sight. So summer is the season you'll be familiar with, but all the seasons are represented here, and they're represented in all their icons, right? Winter, with its snow, used to be represented by Santa Claus, who actually traveled around in a snow sled, in a sleigh, pulled by reindeer. Again, 25 years from now, when you're watching this video, there won't be any living reindeer. They'll be in zoos, but they won't live in the wild because they're adapted to an environment that doesn't exist anymore. You'll also have to Google polar bears and penguins. Those were the symbols of that season when I'm making this video, so they will often show up. Same thing is true with spring. In the Northern Hemisphere during the heyday of the New Yorker, spring was symbolized by the growth of the seasons. It was symbolized by children yearning to get out of school for the summer. It was symbolized by the softening of the air, the temperatures, and also by the Christian holiday of Easter. And again, 20 years from now, if you're finding this video, in addition to having only 2 seasons, Christianity will be a minority religion in a world ruled by Islam. So you won't necessarily know about the little cultural signals of Christianity. One of which was the Easter Bunny. The Easter Bunny. We have this classic from 1940 where the Easter Bunny has left some chocolate eggs in this old coot's chair. Or there's a mountain climber finding giant colored Easter eggs in a bird's nest. We get my beloved Helen Hokinson. This is a spring cover where the joke here is that this is one of her ladies, one of her best girls, in their high heels, their penciled high heels, with their tiny little dog, and she is getting the hired help to help her peer into a bird's nest for spring, because that's when the little chicks would be hatching. And you can see that she has kind of a maternal smile on her face there. But the point is that this guy. That's the point of the joke, is that she is so oblivious that he has to help her. We get summer. So here you get amusement car rides, all that sort of thing. This is from 1933. So as far away from me as I might be from you, and you can see right away, right? The men all have hats. The roller coaster has no safety bars, none at all. It's you can see the little time capsules, and you see they break it down by season. So here is autumn, and I want to give you an example of what I mean by the way that a New Yorker cover could really just be a quiet little captured moment. Some of them are funny. I mean, this is one of the New York City Marathon. They're running through the streets like that. Just a huge serpentine line of runners all the way through the streets. But some of them could be little meditations. I keep gravitating to Helen Hokinson. I don't mean to, but I keep gravitating to her because I love her so much. But okay, here we go. This is from 1954, and this is a summer cover, and this is the cover. This is by Mary Petty, who's most famous for one particular New Yorker illustration. This is not it, but still, see what I mean? This is they're just in a little, they're cooling off in a pool in the woods. And oftentimes New Yorker covers were like that. They were quiet, meditative things that weren't designed to push forward a story. They were just designed to give you a moment. It could also be funny. This is another Easter one where you have chocolate Easter bunnies in an art museum just staring contemplatively at Easter egg paintings. And this is just full of stuff like that. It's just another New Yorker collection. I love them so much. So those are some of my art books, some more confusing than others. Some of these things are either now lost in time or are going to be lost in time very soon. I didn't realize that when I was picking them off the shelf, because to me it's still second nature. All the stuff that's in the ever-loving Blue-Eyed Pogo is second nature to me. It all feels like current events, even though the people are long gone, the stories are long forgotten. And talking about the normal course of the 4 seasons also feels like second nature to me. It was my whole life. This is the very first year where I am assuming that the winter in Boston will have one freakishly cold day, and that all the rest of it will be in the low 50s. That we will never come close to freezing, that we will never come close to a hard killing frost, which is days of frost to kill off all the stuff that's just under the surface. That we won't come close to that. That won't even be close to happening. That wasn't close to happening last year or the year before that or the year before that. Each of those winters had a day or two of temperatures that were so cold they might freeze the pipes, and they might get the bubble-headed bleach blondes on the news talking about it. But the rest of it was walk around in windbreaker weather. It was not 6 feet of snow, much less 20 feet of snow, which New England is fairly familiar with. Last winter was such a frequent repetition of that. No snow at all, barely any cold. That I think it broke a lot of New Englanders. I don't think I'm alone in not making any preparations at all for this one. I'm not making any preparations at all. I have no intention of bringing down the storm windows on the windows. Why would that be the point? If I can close the windows, that'll be good enough. It's going to be a little bit cool at night in the middle of January, but it's not going to be cold. Getting out the shovels from the basement, no need. Why would I need to do that? It's not going to snow. Snow's not going to accumulate. It might snow one day. That would be freakish. Again, the bubble-headed bleach blondes would talk about it. And then the next day will be 65 degrees. It'll all be melted by 10 in the morning. So what's the point? Rock salt to melt ice? There's no need to have anything like that anywhere around. I'm barely even consenting to launder and fold the winter blankets. I'm barely even consenting to do that. It simply isn't going to happen. And the same thing is true with the languid joys of summer, where it's going to be another warm day. It's going to cool off at night, but it's going to be a warm day. That might be true for a little while here in New England, but it's hard to enjoy days like that when you know that Houston or Tucson is on their 100th straight day of 110 degrees Fahrenheit as the daytime high. Just an unthinkable dystopia of heat, of murderous heat. Or California, or a couple of years ago Portland. It's hard to sit back and enjoy the languors of a warm summer day when you know that you're the freakish exception. So something like this is more of an innocent bygone pleasure than anything else. In the same way that this is as well. This is a bygone pleasure of when newspapers were on every. There was a dispenser on every corner. There was a newsstand on every major street. Everybody read the paper in the morning. News junkies like myself read at least 2 editions of every paper. So I'm going to drop a nickel in the slot for the morning New York Times, or the morning Boston Globe, or the morning Boston Herald, back when the Herald was not a scandal sheet. But I'm going to want. I don't have a TV. I have the radio, but I don't have a TV. I'm going to want the afternoon edition or the evening edition of the paper as well. Obviously, I am. They're going to be substantially different. I'm going to want both, and that's every day. And the cartoons, all of it was all such an active part of that, and it's long gone. And actually, there's kind of a bygone thing with this as well. This serves to remind me, when I pull this book down, I pull this down often. I shouldn't say down because it's on a bottom shelf. I don't want to risk killing myself. It's a heavy thing. But I consult it often just for a little detail of how was this particular scene. If I've read one chapter from Genji and I want to know how was this particular scene visually interpreted over the decades or the centuries, I will often find myself thinking of all of those people, all those readers of this book. Because the Japanese are so amazing and such an amazingly literate people and have prized literature for the whole length of their civilization, that without any interruption, we have this incredible record of how this book was read, how it was loved, how editions of it were treasured, that we don't have for a lot of the Western classics that I also love. I would love something like this for Virgil's Aeneid, or the Divine Comedy, or the Iliad and the Odyssey. But I will often, when I'm looking at this, I will often think not only about that literary treasure, but also about the people that are long, long gone. Their names are long gone. No one knows anything about them. Every little worry that they had in their life, every little toothache, or I need 30 more pieces of currency by the end of this week, or it's the end of the world. And it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't the end of the world, and no one remembers. No one remembers at all. The only thing that happened as a result of that is that you lost sleep. You were miserable for 15 of the days that you have on Earth. That's all. Is that you cost yourself 15 of those days. With wary that could not increase by 1 mark any amount of the currency that you need. I think about those people who, in their happy hours and their sad hours, maybe their communal family hours, took down their copies of Genji that are all through this book and read them. Anyway, sorry, I'm going on and on. This is, I'll shut up for now and just merely, I will excuse this elderly peroration by saying that this is why we need an art event, because art has this ability. Books have this ability, and so does art have this ability. So how's that for a save? anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. We'll do another tour of my art books, and I will also start to think about how we're going to draw something together. That would be a lot of fun. But anyway, I'll wrap this up, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.